Hawaiian folk music, born from traditional chants, distinguished by innovation and spontaneity, the sound is rural, rich, and emotional. It evolved as a byproduct of social events by the common citizenry. In its purest sense, it's just good old-fashioned music making.
The Kamehameha School Song Contest tradition is founded on a classic repertoire that is associated with the Nalani Eha, the royal composers of the late 19th century, as well as Charles E. King, the art songs that were prevalent in late 19th century, early 20th century. Because the song contest is founded on that particular repertoire, we have only within the last 15-20 years tapped into a folk repertoire. That is, compositions that were popularized by the community, by folk musicians, by the informal community, as opposed to the very formal and elitist community. And so we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to focus on the creative genius of the common everyday Hawaiian. When we speak of folk music, we're talking about the common everyday individual. We're not talking about the elite aristocratic composer. We're talking about what common folks do on their back porch. We're talking about how common everyday people express themselves when they see the world around them. Very often the repertoire reflects kind of a daily routine that might seem mundane to the schooled person, except in reality it captures the aspirations of folks who daily are concerned with putting food on their table and feeding their young and keeping their family together and eking out an existence in many cases, which we think is a very valid perspective to reflect artistically. And because the song contest focuses really on the more, I should say, quasi-Western art song tradition.
Folk music is a creative process that's been practiced by Hawaiians for generations. The notion that the Westerners somehow introduced it is misleading, although beginning in the mid-19th century, Hawaiians adopted many of the European elements and made them their own. Educator, historian, and Kapahula Hawaii Kumuhula John Kahai Topolinsky explains.
With respect to music, they admire the poetic renderings of the Western world. They admired a lot of the tunes and the music. And it was very simple to transfer it into to hula, which was called hula ku'i. I think it's safe to say that during the reign of Kalakaua, when it came into its prominence, hula ku'i means to join, to take the old and the new and make it one, okay? And Hawaiians had no problem with this. I mean, they did not minimize their stance as being Hawaiians. It did not minimize the beauty of their poetry and its layered meanings. It enhanced it.
It's hard to say that folk music was somehow introduced, but rather was happening as a dynamic process all along, even through great trauma, you know, with Western intervention. Great trauma, there was always a folk expression.
I don't think Hawaiians should ever deny hula ku'i, where it's from, hula olapa, or any of those, or mele and himeni. You know, it's such a rich culture with so many layers. And that's the Hawaiian process, you know, the thought process, right? Does he mean this or that? Oh, I don't think so. What is he? You know, so it's a mind game. And what enhances the mind game? It's the music of the hula ku'i. that gives it life, you know, and pictures, man.
It's always in retrospect, you know, we always look back and say, well, gee, there's the coming together of the old and the new. But I think as these people are living and creating music, that they aren't looking at it like that. They are simply, they're innovators. You probably put them out in the middle of the wilderness all by themselves, and they're going to find some way to creatively capture that experience. And I think this is what happened in the 19th century.
Inspired by their late father, Gabby Pops Pahinui, brothers Cyril and Martin Pahinui continue the slack key tradition, a tradition played from the heart through the fingers.
They asked me, oh, how is it playing slack key? I said, well, the music itself, it's nice, it's beautiful, and everybody have their own style. Like my dad had his own style. Sonny Killingsworth had his own. Otto Isaac, he had his own style of playing. Lenny Kwan, there's so many great slack key guitar players. So each and every one of them are all unique in their own ways. Growing up with my family, music was always with us from baby time when we were born. And as far as myself, I guess it's because of living with my family and, you know, music, like I said, was always, I started to pick up on the instrument and learn it and play along.
We don't know exactly when the guitar came to Hawaii, but one of the favorite theories, I think, among historians, is that vaqueros, or Mexican cowboys, if you will, were brought into Hawaii to teach the art of ranching to Hawaiians, brought with them the guitar over the course of, maybe 10, 20, 30 years. Long after the vaqueros left, Hawaiians then took the guitar and created their own way of expressing themselves, which we have today, kiho'alu, slacking the strings, changing the original tuning to create a certain sound.
Musician and University of Hawaii slack key instructor Peter Medeiros explains the development of that sound.
What happened, though, is that they developed a unique style of playing where you have a fundamental bass being established. Sometimes it's called an alternating bass, and a melody being played against it.
Slack key artists draw from closely held family techniques and tunings handed down through generations. Both the rhythms and the melody are distinctive.
Hawaiians actually were quite possessive of the manner of playing kiho'alu, as well as the way they tune. People would guard their tunings very much like I heard it described as like a family recipe. You know, you wouldn't want to share with everyone the exact tunings, because it's kind of how you create that special color when you play. And I've also heard people mention how certain artists would turn away from the audience when they tuned. You know, so we're seeing something like, you know, this very kind of humble, unassuming introduction of the guitar, and over the period of just a few decades, we have Hawaiians apprehending that and working with that and making it into their own art form.
Hawaiian cultural icons like Mary Kavena Pukui, Iolani Luahine, and Hoakale Kamau'u reflect the eloquence and genius of the folk expression.
The more time I think we spend looking at the beauty of folk music, we cannot help but describe this as a kind of genius, a kind of folk genius that comes from the common everyday experience. Certainly there have been a number of geniuses over the course of the last couple hundred years, but if we had to isolate specific individuals and say, gee, there's just some genius going on a folk level here, I can't help but think of folks like Gabi Pahinui, who in his unassuming, simple lifestyle is able to create incredible sounds and to deliver those sounds in a way that just touches the soul. You can't learn something like that in a school or in a formal setting. You have to have all of your channels open to connect with this greater kind of, muse, some would say. But people like Gabi Pahinui really had it going on.
One time I watched Ata, Sani, and my dad. Three of them play guitar together. I think I probably must have been about 16 or 17 years old. How old I was, but I started to cry to watch them play. I mean, the kind of magic what they come out of their fingers, what they can do. And you look at they play one song and three guys play different tunings, but the same song,
His repertoire comes from the late 19th century. Much of his repertoire is late 19th century. Did some of his first recordings in the mid-1940s. Got many of his things re-released in the late 1960s, early 70s, and is still touching people, moving people to tears in the 21st century. I think that's genius. He's one of many examples. Eddie Kamai, in his folk genius, gathers others around him to create music and put out recordings that changed the face of Hawaiian music overnight. It's almost like the Hawaiian community was yearning for some kind of ancestral connection. Personally, when I think of Genoa Keawe as a genius, 83 years old, and this woman is caring for a repertoire of music, again, largely from the late 19th century, early 20th century, but her voice is clear as a bell. One theory of the invention of the steel guitar is that Joseph Kepuku, the Kamehameha school student, created the steel guitar sound by running a tumbler, or some say even a comb, over the strings of the guitar, turned on its side. And again, look what happened to the steel guitar as a result of that one creative teenager, walking home from school, stumbles on that, the sound created by those elements put together. That is creative genius. That's folk genius.
Kanikapila, a slang reference for spontaneous music making, has always been a strong component of Hawaiian expression. With changes in the dynamics of the family structure, many fear this cherished folk tradition is vanishing.
In Hawaiian culture, music making is a social event. That is, music is a byproduct of interaction that occurs socially. I wouldn't necessarily say that music or even whether song or dance happens in and of itself. That is really an introduced notion. And rather, it needs to be part and parcel of the context that's occurring. Therefore, we have, as an important part of culture, spontaneity, the ability to come together without notice and create something out of nothing. When I think of the Kamehameha experience, I sometimes think of it as being a fading landscape. By that I mean the landscape for music making in Hawaii 30, 40 years ago was much more rich. Why? Maybe it's because the family unit was much more intact 40, 50 years ago, such that there was intergenerational interaction.
Cyril Pahinui remembers the magic of spontaneous music making while growing up in a family of entertainers.
Sometimes you find more creative things, you know, when you play live. Things that come out of your guitar, things come out of your voice. Wow, what is that? You know, and that's how things generate. I heard these guys sing this way, let's do it that way, you know. And like I say, it comes from the backyard.
Hawaiian language judge and respected elder Henry Ka'alekahi fondly remembers the old days singing and playing music at backyard gatherings.
When you the kind of luau's we get, as soon as you come there at the luau, they give you the ukulele, you know, and you don't tell them I cannot play. You just give you the ukulele and you start singing, and everybody joins in.
I'm sad sometimes to think that there just isn't that kind of Kamehameha context around as much. What can we do about it? Well, we can create more contexts for spontaneous music making. How do we do that? It's not easy. You can't recreate the family experience, literally, but you can create family-like experiences.
University of Hawaii professor Dr. Jonathan Osorio, who along with Dr. Terry Kanalu Young, team teach a Hawaiian music class at the Center for Hawaiian Studies. They take a hands-on approach to music making from a Hawaiian perspective. As Osorio explains, it's the music that keeps them Hawaiian.
We've really noticed this, that one of the things that we're losing in our families, and we notice it at the family level, is we're losing the ability really to come together and play music that we all know. For a long time, almost all of our history and almost all of the really important cultural markers that marked us as Hawaiians were carried by music almost alone.
One goal of the song contest is to expose students to a repertoire of music that they can take with them into the 21st century.
That's what we try to do at Kamehameha, especially with regard to the selection of the folk song theme, is to, for our some 1,800 students at the high school level, to expose to them this repertoire and to give them opportunities to make music with others. Once we lose our spontaneity, Hawaiian culture will be just like any culture in the past that no longer exists, but we have all the information in a textbook. I'm afraid we'll be just like that if we lose our spontaneity. If suddenly we're doing everything by the book, what's right, what's wrong, how about what's beautiful? How about what excites you? Those are more important questions to ask in the music making process.